Hi, I'm Chris Pugliese, 405 West Ashbridge Street in Westchester Borough, and this is my garden. I've been here for 15 years and done a lot of work all over the property, not just vegetable gardens, but also water features behind me and terraces and renovations to the deck that's to my right and left, as well as establishing a lot of gardens. And we'll take a look. Okay, this is the vegetable garden that I've had for quite a while in this spot. This raised bed is something I did just this year for a couple reasons. I have a bad back and I wanted to get it up where I could easily work on it. I also wanted to utilize some soil that I had, a lot of soil that was left over from another project. And I also wanted to make this more of a 3-season garden or even a 4-season garden by adding on this hoop feature and covering it in the winter, which is what I did this year. So this is new this spring. I actually got this thing done and filled and started seeds in it in March under a cover, and it got me about at least 3 weeks of a head start on the garden. So most of the stuff you see in here was seeded in March, and it's getting to the point where I can't even barely use all this stuff in here. We're a family of 3, and I've been harvesting stuff in here for a month. So I'm hoping to follow this with some successional plants. I'll probably plant some more greens in there that'll do well in the summer. What I should mention about this bed is this raised bed is that I made a framework out of some leftover wood that I had, and I realized while I was building it there was some space to put some foam insulation in there, some like rigid foam insulation, and I thought that would be a good idea, and I did it over 1/2 the length of this, so 7 feet of this first part where I actually have the hoops. It's actually insulated, so I'm hoping that, and we'll see because I haven't done this yet, so we'll see if I can extend this later into the winter and keep things growing with under a polyethylene clear plastic, but maybe the insulation will help give it some added longevity. So when I built this garden originally, I had a bunch of black locusts back here, and because I'm on a slope, my whole backyard is a fairly steep slope, I had to terrace this to create the vegetable garden. So I reused, I just had them cut the logs and remove the logs into place. So there's a log here that forms an upper level, and then there's a middle level here, and then behind me there's a last log which steps down another 1.5 foot or so. So by doing that I was able to, make it a little more practical for gardening. What you probably see behind me is a big river birch tree, which was not here when I first started this garden. I added that tree about 2 years into the garden because in losing some of the original trees because they were problematic, we wanted to get some separation between the neighbors, so I planted that river birch. Well, consequently, what's happened over the years, it's gotten very large, and it's actually it's hindering my sun for the garden. So we don't want to get rid of the tree, so consequently I've had to modify the garden and what I can grow, and I've had to cut off about 1/3 of this garden, the lower part, and I'm now using that for blueberries and a few odds and ends vegetables, but I also use it as kind of a heal-in bed for other plants that I'm not. So it's kind of a mixed bag. There was an asparagus bed in here which was a little more extensive, and it's still producing, but I started this year to start a new one. I've had to rebuild this fence, and I've made it higher. And in making it higher, I realized that I could use the elevation that I gained and actually use the bamboo poles for the tomatoes to be trained on. The tomatoes are actually in these large nursery containers, which I've saved over the years from my planting projects. And what it does is it makes it a little easier for me to maintain. I also gain a little bit of height. In gaining the height, I gain more sun. So I'm making do. It's been a challenge, but hopefully this is new this year, this system, and I'm going to see if it works. So I just wanted to talk a little about this particular bed, which is right in my front yard. I live on a busy intersection, and this is my mailbox garden bed, but I've devoted this, it's kind of like a pseudo meadow. It's very small, but I've used a lot of native meadow plants in here to establish a little meadow garden. There are a few non-native plants in here, like catnip and some sedum, but it's mostly all native. And obviously, these plants are good pollinator plants. Right now, this garden really has interest from early May through actually even through winter. I have some grasses in here which I leave up all during the winter, like sea oats grass. Right now, the kind of the showiest thing in this garden is this Baptisia, which is called false indigo. I have a few different kinds in here. I have a yellow variety over there. I have a couple different blue varieties here, but this is it has great architectural interest, and also quite interesting kind of pea-like flower, and it's a prairie plant which can grow all over the United States. But there's other things in here which are gonna, I guess, Carolina lupin, which is about to bloom, and there's some Joe Pye weed in here, and some in front of me, and there's some perennial sunflower in here, native asters later for the late summer, fall, and Arkansas blue star, which is starting to lose its bloom back here. So anyway, I get a lot of comments on this because it's front and center, and it's not your run-of-the-mill garden for the front of the yard. So I'm kind of proud of it, so I wanted to show it off. So in closing, I'm standing here on my side yard in front of a shade garden that I've had established for many years, and I just appreciate having the opportunity to show the garden off. And I guess if I had some advice for people, I would say that don't be afraid to experiment a little bit with plants and expand the plant palette a little bit. Obviously, whatever you're into, there's all different kinds of gardens, but and all different opportunities to utilize different types of plants. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it.